Yeah, Tim, there was a few things in the comments there like, I'm convinced he's actually Chris Stapleton without the hat.
I've heard that before, man. It's so crazy.
Then somebody said, well, we'll see him playing guitar at Bourbon and Beyond.
Yeah, I was in a bar here in Lexington, and there was a group of guys that came over. They were actually police officers, and they were like, "Are you Chris Stapleton?" And I said, "Oh, man, I get that all the time. I'm actually his cousin, Rick Stapleton."
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Welcome to episode 192 of Bourbon Pursuit. I'm one of your hosts, Kenny, and we don't really have a whole lot of news because this is the Roundtable. All we talk about is the most recent news, but we have a little bit of news about us, and that is that this is your last reminder that Ryan and I will be presenting at the Louisville Bourbon Society on March 18th. Learn more about the podcast, also get a chance to try some of our private label Pursuit series, and just come and meet us. We want to see you there. If it's your first time attending, your attendance is free and you can bring a guest. Get more information and join us 6:30 p.m. at the Henry Clay in downtown Louisville at thebourbonsociety.org. We also have another barrel selection under our belts this week as we were at Wild Turkey and we selected a barrel of Russell's Reserve. We've got a lot of things that are starting to hit as well as more Pursuit series, so stay tuned for that. This is the 30th recording of the Community Roundtable. That means we've been doing these for almost 2 years now. And I know you all really enjoy them because we get to take on that recent news and we get to invite some knowledgeable guests. And this week we talked to Tim Jones about his new show on the Discovery Channel, Moonshiners Whiskey Business. It premiered on Wednesday this past week, March 13th. So make sure you go and you set your DVRs to catch the future recordings and don't miss season 1 that premiered yesterday. And we also discussed the new Jim Beam Legent and the Weller Foolproof because who doesn't like a little bit of controversy? Did you know that we're the only whiskey podcast on Pandora? Go check it out and subscribe. Now get ready to hear from our good friend Fred Minnick with Above the Char.
I'm Fred Minnick and this is Above the Char. As I walked down the bourbon aisle in Liquor Barn, I analyzed all the prices. I looked for new sourced whiskeys. I even checked out the craft bourbons that I haven't tasted in a while. Picked up a bottle of Bluegrass Distillers. Was quite impressed with it for being 2 years old. I scanned the area looking for something I didn't have in my bar, and there it was. Kind of towering in all its glory, stacks upon stacks of James T. Kirk straight bourbon, aged 12 years. The Star Trek symbol was on there. James T. Kirk's signature was there. And there was little flashes of Star Trek in the label. I was just in a moment. Well, I've known about the Star Trek bourbon for some time. And a lot of people got them for Christmas gifts. They've been popping up on Instagram and social media for a few months. This was really my first encounter with one. I didn't have a bottle. I bought it. I am such a Star Trek fan. I mean, I am a Star Trek fanatic. My wife and I, we still watch reruns, and we have squirt guns that are phasers, and we've got the communicator badges. We're just big fans, always have been. And so we were both ecstatic to have an opportunity to taste this together. We each poured a glass, swirled it around, looked at it, smelled it. My wife's first comment was like, wow, it just smells like alcohol. I, too, was unimpressed and picked up the alcohol note as well as oak, so a lot of wood. And then I put it upon my lips, and charcoal just layered my palate. It was like an ashtray was poured down my tongue, and then someone washed it down with used bong water. It was so gross. I mean, I can't even think of a better way to describe it. It was disgusting. Now, I don't know if I'm going to actually write a full-blown review with a score as I often do, because at the end of the day, I'm still a Star Trek fan. And I do believe that James T. Kirk is one of those symbols in Americana that we need to hold up high. But James, Captain Kirk, maybe we stay away from bourbon from now on. Just focus on the Romulans. And that's this week's Above the Char. Hey, do you have an idea for Above the Char? Hit me up on Twitter or Instagram at Fred Minnick. That's at Fred Minnick. Until next week, cheers.
From their bar to yours, Chad and Sarah of the popular YouTube channel It's Bourbon Night bring you their favorite at-home old-fashioned mix with the new Elemental Elixir's Golden Hour Syrup. It's a custom-made syrup with notes of bold black tea, warm spices, and orange zest. All you need is your favorite whiskey and ice. No bitters needed. One bottle makes 16 drinks, so that's only $1 a cocktail before you add your own whiskey. They can also be enjoyed in other cocktails or spirits, mocktails, coffee, tea, and anything you can think of. It's crafted locally in Lexington, Kentucky, and you can get your bottle now at whiskeyambitions.com. Do you ever pour yourself a bourbon, swirl it around, and then start struggling to come up with tasting notes? And perhaps you're also looking for a good Father's Day gift idea. Well, you can now solve both with a kit from Knows Your Bourbon. And unlike other nosing kits on the market, Knows Your Bourbon kits feature real ingredients for the most authentic aromas. You can smell real Tahitian vanilla bean instead of some synthetic aroma that's just made from chemicals. So head on over to knowsyourbourbon.com and enter code BP10 for 10% off your order. Ed Bly and Rising Tide Spirits are back again with a new release of Old Stubborn Bourbon. And this release of Old Stubborn is a premium hand marriage of 10, 11, and 12-year cask strength, barely filtered pot still bourbon. It comes in at a staggering 123.8 proof, and the flavoring grain for this one, which the last one was wheated, but this time it's now rye. Rich, sweet, and bold with a long finish that's sure to be another eye-opener. You can order online at Sealbox or thebourbonconcierge.com, and you can even purchase in person at Revival Vintage Spirits, and even now with very few select stores in Kentucky. You can get it now while you can, but be sure to do it because it's not going to last long.
Play Whiskey Wednesday Round 11, the memory game. Until June 26, each week you could win one of our 12 incredible grand prizes. Select $2 at checkout. And if they match on drawing night, you'll win that bottle. Not a match? No worries. You still score a Weller 12-year. Every $5 ticket gives you 5 chances to win, including 4 weekly bonus prizes. Get your tickets now at give270.org. Charitable Gaming License ORG 0002703.
Always find what you love at Total Wine & More. With so many great bottles to choose from at the lowest price, it's easy to find your favorite Cabernet or a new single-barrel bourbon to try with some help from one of their friendly guides. And with every bottle comes the confidence of knowing you just found something amazing. With the lowest prices for over 30 years, find what you love and love what you find only at Total Wine & More. Curbside pickup and delivery available in most areas. Visit TotalWine.com to learn more. Spirits not sold in Virginia and North Carolina. Drink responsibly and be 21.
Welcome to another episode of Bourbon Pursuit, and this is the 30th recording of the Bourbon Community Roundtable. I mean, this is amazing. 30 times of doing this every 3 weeks. That makes us old. And speaking of old, one thing that happened this week was the introduction of daylight savings, and I know it messed up my house. Fred and Ryan, what about yours?
I can't hear you. I'm kidding. Metallica, Metallica is still messing with my ears.
Yeah.
Metallica and then daylight savings time was that wasn't very well coordinated. I wish they would, change that up for us so we could not have to wake up at 6 a.m. with our kids the next day, or I did at least. But,
I know. Remember the text we got from Kenny at 12?
Yeah.
12:15? I just woke up.
It's 12:30 in the afternoon. Absolutely.
I was
it's weird, but
and everything.
We almost we were going to go see Legos 2, Oscar and I, and our house we have analog clocks all around, and that's what I use to go by from the for what I'm going to do during the day.
Of course you do.
I'm surprised it's not full of grandfathers. You got to go and you got to wind up. And
it's funny. I have a smartwatch too.
He has a chime at 12.
So we almost missed it because I was going by one of the analog clocks and not the technology ones.
Well, those phones and those watches, man, they come in handy every once in a while.
But I'll tell you what, there those gears on those clicky-do type of clocks. Those are nice.
Oh, they are. They are. That's what you call a clocksmith or a real craftsman too.
Mm-hmm.
All right, but let's go ahead. We'll kind of go around the table real quick to introduce one familiar face here. So Jordan from Breaking Bourbon, go ahead and take it away.
Sure. Thanks, guys. So this is Jordan from Breaking Bourbon, one of 3 guys who runs the website. You can find us at Breaking Bourbon on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and Patreon. And of course, sign up for our newsletter to get weekly updates. And we're always doing a daily release calendar update too to find out when all of your favorite bourbons are hitting the town.
It's a very good resource. What is that? It's got to be like your most popular article on the site, is it really?
Yeah, it's one of the biggest destinations on the site for sure. Mm-hmm. For sure. There's a lot of people who go to it every day.
Yeah. My father-in-law texts me like every other day. You see the bourbon guys calendar? I'm like, yep, here it is.
And that's a good segue for our next guest right here, because our next guest was always worried about her dog that was getting ready to talk to her.
Yeah. I couldn't hit that mute button fast enough for
It's okay. We all have kids. Like I might get a knock on the door a little bit later. Who knows what's going to happen? But this is a new face to the roundtable, so we want to introduce Jackie James. So Jackie, welcome.
Thank you so much. And thanks, Charlie. That's my dog who is a little too vocal at the moment, but so I'm
like
newer to
whiskey. Or like
oh my God, he just wants attention all the time, but I think he probably gets that from me, so I can't be too mad at him. So I'm new to bourbon and whiskey and very excited to be here and kind of learn from you guys. And Fred's kind of been like a big brother to me too and teaching me some things. And I'm just really excited about translating the bourbon and whiskey world to kind of my world, which are a lot of people and women in specific that haven't been introduced to whiskey, or maybe we've felt a little bit not left out, but maybe it's a little intimidating to get our feet in that pool. So I'm excited to learn more and take on this endeavor to share what I learn and my passions with other women and other people to kind of transition from whether they're drinking vodka or wine like I was, or just expanding their repertoire to learning about what all these value adds are in whiskey and the community, the conversations, this kind of stuff that honestly, I've had great times with wine with my girlfriends, but I've never had the level of conversations and knowledge and just the camaraderie that I've had since I've been exposed to whiskey.
And your background, tell them a little bit about your background and how you hang out with Shaq and Magic Johnson and all those great NBA players.
I don't know about that. I come from a corporate background.
This is a step down then.
This is roundtable. Pretty much.
Sorry, Jackie.
Yeah, it's like starting from ground zero at this point.
Yeah.
I think it's the same premise as what I did before in sports, which is basically, we're all people, regardless of how much we make or if we're on TV or we're not, or how successful we are. But at the end of the day, we're all people trying to relate to one another. And for sports, which is what I worked in before, it was intimidating sometimes for some people and women in specific like me who never really understood or played sports. I tried to create something that would help us relate and connect with the games and with athletes, whether it be through the human side of athletes or the social side of sports. So kind of the same thing with whiskey now. I'm just trying to create baby steps. But with whiskey, I'm like so gung-ho passionate that I want to learn everything. I love what I did in sports, but I never really got passionate about wanting to learn what a touchdown is or a 3-point shot, or it was kind of, it hit a level where I was like, okay, I really need to now hand this off to the girls that are true sports enthusiasts. Whereas with whiskey and bourbon, I just can't get enough of it right now. So hopefully I'll be able to add more value.
Well, I'm glad we made a convert out of you. For anybody that's just listening to this, you can't see her background, but it's full of whiskey bottles. And I kind of want people to, give you some idea, like what was that turning point, or what was that bottle that kind of got you on this train?
So my very first try of whiskey was a Van Winkle 12, and I was with a friend who took me out to celebrate something. And I was thinking it was just like going to a bar and getting a glass of wine, right? And I'm laughing going, oh, this is really tasty. Just get the whole bottle. And all of a sudden, everybody around me is looking at me like, who is this girl and why is she nuts? And I'm thinking, what is it, like a $200 bottle? Like, how bad could it be to just buy the rest of the bottle? Not a big deal, right? But that immediately started off conversations with other people in the bar or restaurant, just regular chatting, that we're all drinking whiskey, and it was a membership type of location. So everyone had their own different bottles of whiskey, and they all of a sudden were like, hey, try this, try mine. What do you think about this? Smell this, taste this. And I'm going, what in the heck? This never happens to me with a vodka soda or a glass of Sauvignon Blanc. It's not like people are like, but this one's from New Zealand, this one's from Napa. Smell that, unless you're in that particular setting. So I just really, it was kind of like a boys club, to be honest. I was the only girl there, and I was welcomed with open arms. And I just started thinking, hey, if I started learning more about this, because I actually like the taste, which in my head, I thought I was going to hate it before I even tried it, because I just kind of grew up that way. And the few girlfriends I've taken to try whiskey, they do the same thing. We make this face of like, ooh, before we even try it. And it's just kind of ingrained in our heads that that's a guy's drink, or that's, and I'm speaking just from personal experience. Obviously, there's women that know their whiskey.
Speaking for my wife. That's her first thing.
Well, that
She's
and
like,
recently,
bourbon.
Yeah. I mean, I've been meeting women that are in their 70s, and they're like, my husband's been drinking whiskey for years, but I've always thought, oh, gross, that's his thing. Why are you interested in it? And that's kind of my goal now, is teaching and sharing with people what I'm learning, which is, kind of, I laugh at Fred's hashtag, but the vodka sucks. That was my drink, was, a vodka soda, but because there was no calories, but it was never for flavor. It was never for taste. It was to get a little boozy and have fun. But now that I know I can get a little boozy and have fun and actually enjoy the taste and learn something and support friends and learn history, I mean, it's amazing. It's truly amazing.
Welcome to the movement, Jackie.
I know my friends are like, you can't shut up about this.
Yeah, he's got a special patch for you. He's going to send so you can iron it on your jacket and you can sport that around.
Yeah, it's just a really great community, and the flavor I love, and I'm learning to love more and more. And the more exposure, getting to actually realize that I can tell the difference between certain things, which is I'm still at such a beginner level, but it's fun. I feel like I look at women having Tupperware parties back in the day. Why can't we have whiskey parties?
Or a Tupperware whiskey party.
Or a Tupperware bourbon party.
Tupperware full whiskey party. Huh?
That's right. Down with that.
There's a whole other niche and market that we're not tapping yet.
Yeah. And you know what? I was really wrong, because I realized how many of my girlfriends actually like whiskey, and I didn't even know it before. I have a friend, she's pregnant right now, but she was like, oh, I only drink whiskey. You just never paid attention because you were always drinking vodka and wine. And I'm like, I'm sorry, you're right. So I'm actually realizing there's a lot of other women out there that do enjoy whiskey. I just didn't realize it. So now I'm kind of like, okay, let's bring us all together and talk about it, learn some things, share some things.
Well, there you go. Thanks for being another apostle in the bourbon lord, I guess you could say, spreading that good message that's out there.
Yeah, right. That's great.
My pleasure.
So let's go ahead. We'll pivot to our first conversation. Before we introduce our next guest, I kind of want to give a little bit of background about really what's going on here. So Tim Jones is the creative director at a marketing firm in Lexington, Kentucky, and he's dealt with some clients that we've all heard before. But him and Fred are both going to appear on Discovery Channel's new Moonshiners spinoff series called Moonshiners, Whiskey Business, premiering on March 13th. It's a 4-episode series following the moonshine legend Tim Smith, who built an illegal moonshine empire back in Virginia, and gave up his ways to bring his family recipes out of the mountains and into America's liquor stores. Now he's using a lifetime of liquor making expertise and a team of whiskey experts, including Jones and Devin Mills and Fred Minnick, with their own homegrown know how to pull these struggling distillers back from the brink and preserve the American tradition of handmade liquor. So I guess, Tim, first, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, awesome. Are we talking about whiskey or moonshine here? What are we talking about?
We can talk about whatever you want, man.
Talk about your hair. I love it.
Yeah. I like Jackie's hair, man. Nice.
Thank you.
All this kind of started with the Moonshine series. So Moonshiners, big show. And it's been doing good. It's actually in one of its best seasons. But they gave me a call and said, we're going to go around and help legal distilleries, help some of these small distilleries out. Do you want to join the show? And I said, let's do it. I'll jump on there and do it. So it's not a lot of moonshine. We talk about it, obviously, with Tim Smith on there. a lot of these guys do bottle a, unaged spirit, like a moonshine. But a lot of them are wanting to get into more stuff, rums and bourbons and different whiskeys. And that's what we're there. We're helping them expand, helping them with any kind of distilling issues, help tell their story. That's where I come in. That's where Fred comes in as well. And so, yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
Is it like analogous to, so when I think about something like this, I think of like bar rescue, where they have somebody that like, they just can't, they're struggling, they can't get it going. Like, is it sort of like that? Like they bring somebody in like you or Fred to really help them and get them back on their feet?
It is. And, that's a really good, if people aren't familiar with the new show, Whiskey Business, it is like a bar rescue, but for distilleries. So,
well, bar rescue, that guy goes in there and he starts throwing things and yelling at people.
Yeah, that's true. How much did y'all yell?
Tim doesn't do that. No, there's none of that going on.
I'm pretty calm. I like good whiskey and good company. So I go in and just listen. I listen a lot, and then help them tell their story through tasting room experience or packaging or, just any kind of marketing, and try to keep it as authentic as we can and bring in new customers and make new fans of their brand. So,
I mean, when you did this, is it like a pretty clean cut formula? Like, okay, we got to check boxes A, B, C, and D. You're really struggling on C. This is where we're going to focus at. And maybe that's packaging or maybe that's something else. Like where did you see a lot of like the inconsistencies or the problems when you're going to distilleries like this?
Really, when you walk in, you're kind of walking in blind. I mean, you don't really know. You have to spend some time there, and it's legit. I mean, we're spending time with them, listening to them, interviewing them, walking through their process, looking at their stills and their entire facility, and just tasting the liquor, making sure it's tastes decent. And if there's some distilling issues there, usually Tim Smith and Devin will address those. But it really is just, you walk in, you learn, and you try to help where you can in a short amount of time. And with a team of 3 of us, we're all experts in different areas. I think it's a pretty solid team. That's what I like most about it. Everybody really knows what they're doing, and we're all staying in our lane, and we're trying to help them.
So I guess another question to kind of tail off on that is, if it is, I mean, were you like the packaging and marketing expert when it came into these conversations, or were you also helping them try to figure out if it's coming off the still incorrectly? Like, what do you need to change, so on and so forth? What was your primary role in that? So
my lane is really telling the story. If it's packaging or marketing or tasting room expansions, redoing that, that's the lane I'm in that on camera. But as a team member, I mean, I am tasting the liquor, giving my opinions. We're talking through it all as a team. And I mean, even Devin or Tim, they're both talking about packaging and talking about the story and tasting room. And so we're all 3 sort of working as a team. Everybody has experience across the board. But as far as like what I do, I stay in the lane and I help with the marketing side on camera. Give us an idea of like, what does that marketing side look like? I mean, is it the packaging? Is it like what give us an example of like what we're going to experience when somebody starts watching this for the first time? Sure. It goes, across the board from, again, like the tasting room. We've expanded tasting rooms. We've knocked down walls, made them larger, changed the lighting and the bar shape and the size of the bar. Merchandise, the flow of it, worked with people on tours, how to give a customer the best experience when they walk in the place, all the way down to packaging and branding and things like that. So it's really about the experience from the bottle to when you walk in the place, how they should conduct a tour. But again, yeah, it's kind of a team effort. Everybody chips in. What I always tell them is, I'll help you sell that first bottle, and it's got to be good to sell the second one. So, I'll do my best to make sure somebody picks it off the shelf for the first time, but it better be good when they open it or, they're not going to buy another one. So what is important to you or helps you convey a message to an audience to pick up that first bottle and purchase it? What do you think's
the most important aspect of that? Is it packaging or is it story? Where do you think that is?
It's kind of everything, and it depends. For me, it depends, from distillery to distillery, product to product. There's been a few that it was more about just really, they had really good juice. It was just making sure that somebody understood what the hell they were trying to do on the packaging. It is, we all know you're gonna stop on a bottle on the shelf if it's something you haven't seen before. All the way to, just making sure we're not bullshitting and we're just being authentic and trying to tell a story that they already have and find an angle that makes sense to them and help them, make it easy on them to tell the story when they're out there doing tastings and stuff like that. So we're not trying to make up a bunch of things. We want it to be as natural as possible when somebody's out there pitching their idea and their brand. So it's a little bit of everything. I mean, there's not one thing that drives sales. I mean, what drives sales really is to make sure it tastes good.
So I kind of want to also kind of tail on to what Ryan was saying there. Give us some examples, or even today, like you're walking through the liquor store aisle. What are some of the biggest problems that you see in the market today where brands just aren't standing out on the shelves? Like, how can they fix that? Besides hiring you, because that's the easy question, I guess.
I don't know, Kenny. That's a big question.
$1,000 an hour. It'll be
God, he's worse than a lawyer.
Yeah. There's just really no magic formula. I mean, a lot of it's word of mouth. I mean, if you have really good juice, you're gonna sell it, as you guys know. I mean, it really does come down to all of us and you guys making sure that you love it, and people will seek it out. But walking through the liquor store, it's a lot of competition. I mean, it's really, really hard to stand out these days. And, there's a few tricks up our sleeves, but it's really about trying to be authentic, selling good juice. And, at the end of the day, we can't avoid, social media and people like you guys and things like that to get the word out. So,
Hold on now. You said you can't avoid social media like it's a
bad thing.
Like it's a bad thing.
No, it's a good thing. It's a good thing, but we know it's so important to let people know before they get into that liquor store.
Do you ever get in there and watch the trolls kind of go off a little bit on some of the brands you work on?
I've been an observer a few times. I've had the luxury of being behind the scenes all these years, and now with my face planted on your podcast here, I might not be able to get away with it as much, but I might have to put my hair up in a ponytail and put a hat on.
That's why you're blacking it out at first.
You know what?
Yeah, exactly.
Man bun it, Tim, and that's all you got to do.
I might. There's a lot of competition out there, man, as you guys know, but making good juice and, hopefully you got a good partner when it comes to helping tell your message and tell it the right way. So
let's go back to the show. Of course, sure. I was on an episode,
mm-hmm.
and that was a lot of fun. But I want people to realize like how important and somewhat historic the series is, because it's not a topical marketing centric story. I mean, they're actually going inside distilleries, talking to distillers who are hurting,
absolutely,
and trying to help them.
Absolutely,
So. Take us through the process of what you all did to select the distillers in which you are featuring.
These first 4 episodes were selected before I got on board. The last one, which is Bondurant Brothers, has an amazing story, amazing history. That was one that they sort of secured after I was on board, and I was really excited to meet those guys. So I can't really speak. I know there's a lot of distilleries out there that need some help, whether they know it or not. And there's plenty of them. So I'm sure we'll continue it, but it's exciting, to meet these guys and ladies and walk in and really get to meet them, spend time with them. And that's what we do. We go in and meet them, spend time with them, and help however we can. And again, we get to make sure, hopefully we improve a liquor, a spirit, a bourbon or gin if it needs it. And then we put it in a nicer package just to make sure it does it justice. I mean, there's some really good stuff out there that people just aren't telling the story the right way to get people excited. So that's what I'm hoping to do, is give everybody a fair shot at this,
Yeah.
And we'll do an episode on me and Kenny, on Pursuit Series. We'd be, happy.
Like, who are these guys?
Yeah. No, I'd love to help.
But on a more serious note, like when you so there's 4 different distilleries you guys talk through. It's Broad Branch Distillery, Old Nick Williams Farm, Three Brothers Distillery, and as you mentioned, Bondurant Brothers. Mm-hmm. Now I'm going to talk about their whiskey.
Yeah.
Is it ready? Like, do you think like it was ready? Like, has it been aged long enough, or is this another issue that we kind of see in the craft market world, where we've got to put something out, maybe it's not necessarily matured enough yet? Like, what was your all's I guess you could say guidance that you gave them in regards to something like that?
I mean, I preach it, man. I preach it like you guys do. Don't take it out of that barrel until it's ready. Do something else if you have to. Just make sure you put good product on the shelf. And some of these guys have really, really good bourbon or whiskey on the way. Some of it's a little young yet. I think Broad Branch has some really interesting stuff going on. Old Nick definitely has, I think the future is really bright for that brand. I think Fred could attest to that. He was there. There's a lot of really fun stuff going on in those craft distilleries for sure. And, but yeah, if they're putting out a gin or any kind of, like a moonshine or something like that, they got to keep the lights on. So I understand that. I tell them, man, don't take that whiskey out until it's ready. Don't take that bourbon out until it's ready.
So let's be honest, because we are biased, and you're a Kentucky boy too.
I know.
Do you think Virginia will ever be able to compete with Kentucky?
No, I don't.
Oh, there it is.
I don't. I think, that's quick. That was awful quick. I think there's a lot of really great stuff going on. If I pick out individuals, I see no reason why they can't. I really don't. I think there's no reason one distillery can't, but as a whole, I mean, they got a lot of catching up to do as a whole, as a state.
Mm-hmm. Let me chime in on that a little bit. I mean, obviously Kentucky has the talent and the resources to kind of own the day in American distilling. But let's face it, prior to Prohibition, North Carolina had a lot of distilleries. Virginia in the 1700s and 1800s was making whiskey that rivaled bourbon. And in fact, Virginia actually owned Kentucky prior to 1792. So, I think what Kentucky has is a plethora of talent. And once these states that haven't been distilling since Prohibition get back online and get a little bit more talent there, I think we'll see some really quality stuff in our lifetime.
And I definitely agree. That's why I backed up a bit. As a whole, they got a long way to go as far as quality and quantity. I mean, but as far as some of the whiskey coming out of there, there's no doubt that there'll be some really good things coming out of those states.
Well, good. So I got one last question. This comes from Josh in the chat here. And he says, when you were going to the show, did you have any input on pricing of the liquor, whether it's through retailer or through anything like that?
We talked about pricing a lot and positioning, more so than just focusing on pricing. But at the end of the day, they know their details and they know their business more than I did or do in the short amount of time I spent with them. So a lot of that pricing is up to them and where they think it makes sense for them. But we talked about positioning and things like that. But I would say I probably didn't sway a price that heavy in the short amount of time I was with them.
The funny thing is that probably more than anything is the most important thing to consumers out there. Is how much does it cost?
Yeah, it is. And, as you guys know, some of these craft distilleries, their prices are pretty high.
Should they be?
As far as a business goes, sometimes they have to be, sometimes they have to be. When we compare bottle to bottle. When we're as drinkers, it's really tough to justify sometimes when you can get, some of these bottles, Buffalo Trace for $25. It's hard to justify something that's, maybe less quality for double.
Half the age, double the price, sort of something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We all know that what's going on, but I wish they could keep their prices down. But at the end of the day, we know it's going to be tough for them.
Yep. So, Tim, I want to say thank you so much for joining in this sort of segment. So feel free to hang around, answer some of the questions, chime in whenever you want. If not, go ahead. And again, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Yeah, no, thanks, guys. It's a lot of fun, and thank you guys for doing what you do. I mean, let's keep American whiskey, going up, and especially bourbon. So keep doing what you're doing.
Tune into Whiskey Business. What's the episode title? It's Whiskey
So
Business.
it's a spinoff of Moonshiners. So it's.
Well, I know, but what's the title of the first episode? Is it just pilot?
No, there was a pilot earlier. I guess it's
Season 1, Episode 1.
Yeah, I guess.
Really interesting.
Moonshiners, Whiskey Business, Old Nick Williams. I think Old Nick Williams will be the first one this Wednesday, 10 o'clock Eastern time.
I'll set my DVR. I go to bed at like 9.
Yeah.
Even though it's 9:43.
Remind people what channel it's on again.
10 o'clock Eastern time, Discovery Channel.
March 13th.
Yeah, this Wednesday. And then we'll do them every Wednesday night after that for 3 more weeks after this Wednesday. So, yeah. And I'm going to hang around for a bit, if you don't mind.
Awesome.
Listen to you guys.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
so as we talk about brands and brand extensions and things that are coming up, one of the things that sort of hit news this week that I first got wind of from an old person, or not old person, somebody who's been on the podcast before. She's definitely not old. Beth Burrows, who works for Jim Beam, she had put this link and said, finally, we can reveal what's been happening inside of Jim Beam. So they are now releasing what is called Legent. I'd like to say like Legend, wait for it, but it's just like a T at the end. So it doesn't really work out very well.
Yeah, I thought you misspelled it when you put in the email. I was like, what?
No, it is Legend. I guess, with a hard T there. But it is not what many would think is going to be a straight bourbon. It is actually not classified as that coming from the TTB. It's actually classified as a specialty. However, this is sort of the story behind it. It's a collaboration between Fred No and Suntory's Master Blender. And this is going to be really bad because I'm a white guy that's in the middle of Kentucky, and I'm going to butcher this name. But his name is Shinji Fukuyo. Okay, so
you know what would have been better is hear Fred No say it.
Maybe.
Actually, I met with
the conversation between the two.
I met with Shinji and Fred, and they were actually quite good friends.
Good. Well, hopefully he didn't butcher his name bad as I did. So I'm gonna probably say it here again. But so the whiskey is described in Esquire magazine, who actually were the ones who broke the story, is that Legend begins with a straight bourbon distilled at Beam and aged for at least 4 years before being finished in a variety of wine and sherry casks. That's when Fukuyo steps in to blend the liquid with other Beam bourbon at the Beam distillery, creating the final product. So I kind of want to pose it to you all first. Is this exciting?
Shopify's already taken the cash register online, helping millions sell billions around the world. But did you know that Shopify can do the same thing at your retail store? Give your point of sale system a serious upgrade with Shopify. Shopify's point of sale is your command center for your retail store. From accepting payments to managing inventory, Shopify has everything you need to sell in person. And with Shopify, you get a powerhouse selling partner that effortlessly unites your in-person and online sales into one source of truth. Track every sale across your business in one place and know exactly what's in stock. Connect with customers in-line and online. Shopify helps you drive store traffic with plug-and-play tools built for marketing campaigns, from TikTok to Instagram and beyond. And get hardware that fits your business. Take payments by smartphone. Transform your tablet into a point-of-sale system, or use Shopify's point-of-sale Go mobile device for a battle-tested solution. Plus, Shopify's award-winning 24/7 help is there to support your success every step of the way. Do retail right with Shopify. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/bourbon, all lowercase, and go to shopify.com/bourbon to take your retail business to the next level today. Shopify.com/bourbon. If you're anything like me, then you can't get enough about bourbon. And that's why I'm a subscriber to Bourbon Plus magazine. Bourbon Plus is a quarterly publication that tells the stories from the heart of bourbon, the farmers who grow the grain, the distillers who labor over the process, and the people like you and me who raise their glasses to celebrate it all. Subscribe to Bourbon Plus magazine today at bourbonplus.com, that's PLUS.com, and use code PURSUIT at checkout for $5 off your subscription.
I kind of want to pose it to you all first. Is this exciting?
Oh, I actually, I had a tasting of this very early this year, and this is where the things that I've added to my plate. I had the exclusive on it, but I just couldn't carve out the time, and there were so many contingencies on the timeline of breaking it that I couldn't make it work with my schedule. But I met with Fred and Shinji, the master blender for Yamazaki, and I got to taste all their iterations in terms of what they were doing, and I thought it was interesting. I think this is where whiskey is going in more of these kind of collaborations. You see it with the craft distillers blending their stuff in with MGP ingredients. You're seeing it. You're seeing some Irish whiskeys being blended with American whiskeys. You're seeing rums being blended with rye and bourbon. So as we kind of get into this world of trying to be innovative without just adding flavoring, this is where it's going. So is it good or not? Well, I think at the end of the day, people will taste it and find out. But there's been many busts in the American whiskey space, and this feels a little bit like it could be on that axis, just because it seems like it's trying a little too hard at times. But the whiskey's not bad, but when I tasted the various iterations, there was I liked one a lot better than this one.
Jordan, you've been pretty quiet. I kind of want to get your take on this.
Yeah, no, I'm excited for this one. So I think, I can speak for Nick and Eric too at Breaking Bourbon. I think we're really always excited by just innovative products, right? Whether they succeed or they're a bust, like Fred just mentioned, I still think we like trying new things, right? And I think that always goes with anything, but especially in bourbon and American whiskey, there's so many just great, outstanding, tried and true brands. Every now and then a new one will pop up too that's just, very traditional bourbon or very traditional whiskey. But it's not too often you get to try something really experimental and something different, right? Mm-hmm. So I think it's going to be interesting to try. I think it's going to be more interesting to see how the Jim Beam fan base is receptive to this. And that's not saying one thing or another on the Jim Beam fan base, right? But I know when the Beam Suntory deal went through, there was a lot of angst amongst the tried and true Beam fans, right? They weren't a huge fan of this. And it'll be interesting to see how that first collaborative product is also really just accepted or not accepted in the marketplace, right? I think dollars will talk on that one just as much as taste will talk to some. So super, super excited to see where it's going to go. Whether it continues on or not, just cool to see some collaboration taking place. There you go.
So Fred's holding up something to the camera that
hanging in the microphone
that 100% of our audio listeners are never going to see. But
Legent.
So Jackie, I kind of want to get your take on it as well, because this is something, as coming it from your particular angle, you might not have the history or knowledge that we might have. So if you see something like this, what are your immediate reactions?
So the way that I'm getting to know whiskeys and bourbon, I really feel like they're people and different personalities and different cultures. And I love what Jordan just said about the idea of trying new things. And one thing I learned in class when I was just out there was with Irish whiskey, they told us a story about this group that were trying to age their whiskey in chestnut barrels to get a different flavor. And I love the story because he said, how did it taste? And he said, like absolute shit. But it was great that these guys were empowered to put their whiskey in chestnut barrels and just try, right? And I think our culture in general is so scared of failure. I love to see people trying new things. And I mean, to me, it does boil down to taste. I haven't tasted it personally, and my palate is so amateur or new. I don't know how to pick things out yet. I just know if I like it or I don't. But I love the premise of it. However, I'm curious, Jim Beam seems to be a company that jumps out to me that has a lot of variations, like their apple, their honey, maybe some flavors that I don't know if they're meant to appeal to women or just kind of offering various options besides just straight bourbon whiskey. So I'm wondering if it will be received the same way, being a collaboration with a Japanese whiskey, or if people think it's too much. It's just like it kind of flirts with the line to me on possibly a marketing thing.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I know nothing.
We're gonna get into the marketing in a second. We'll get to that next.
Yeah.
So there's your amateur perspective from a girl who knows nothing.
I think that's a good point. And one of the things that this style of whiskey does is it doesn't necessarily sit on a shelf, and like liquor stores are all about putting things in boxes. So I think this particular release, unless it wows a lot of people, I think it's going to struggle to stand on the shelf. But it's a beautiful bottle. The taste is good for $35. It's just it's a different style.
And so that was sort of my next point. And Ryan, I'll kind of like lead this one off with you, is that it's a $35 price point, which when you look at new entrants into the market, you rarely see something like that. So kind of talk about that angle.
Yeah, I've spent $35 on a lot worse things. So I'll probably be trying it. When I first pulled it up, I was kind of excited because I've had some Japanese whiskeys and they were excellent. And I thought this was going to be a blend of them too. And then kind of read more and I was like, sherry finish. I mean, gosh, again, I thought this was played out, but they keep going. But I love the packaging. I think the packaging is a home run for me. Like they're finally understanding branding and like who the new whiskey consumer is. I think it appeals to younger kind of modern drinker and instead of kind of like old men, like very masculine. So I love the packaging for me, but I'll try it. $35. I mean, I'm not that excited. That's a blended 4-year with some sherry cask, but I'll try it at least. But
is that the
I was hoping that they would.
I was going to say, Jackie was making some faces.
Not to get too off topic, but is it the target to go away from white men experienced bourbon drinkers? Or is this supposed to be something like new age that appeals to people like me? Or is this supposed to be something that appeals to bourbon drinkers?
I think it's for new age people. I think because when you sherry finish stuff, you're going to have a sweeter, easier, more approachable profile than just like your standard bourbon. And
Not
I think
always.
the packaging screams.
The Oloroso casks are not sweet. They're drier, like nuttier. So it depends on what kind of sherry cask you use. But this is in terms of like the market that they're going after. Like, I remember a director of marketing tell me that anytime with whiskey you try to dictate who your market will be, but with the bottle or something, you will fail. And that was when they were targeting women with flavored products, and they would find out that the women wanted Booker's more than they wanted, cinnamon apple teeny flavored crap.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I mean, the nice news is that $35, and the way I always think about these type of bottles, right? It's one of those ones where you can buy a bottle, you can bring it to a party, be like, hey, let's try something new together. And if it's great, you go get another one. If it sucks, y'all make fun of it together, right? But it's $35.
Yeah, and I missed my last point. When I was scrolling through the website, it's not a good sign when on their like 4 points. It was like our bourbon, our story, and then cocktails. And they had like 10 cocktails already made up for it. And I'm like, oh, that's not good.
Yeah. I mean,
how to mix it.
Yeah. I think, I'll speak my piece a little bit on this. When you think of just the finishing aspect, it's not new, it's not unique. People have been doing it forever. And to come out and say like, oh, we're doing something amazing. It's so brand new. It's a huge line extension. It's like everybody else has been doing this. Like you all are just late to the game. And so it's not like, in my opinion, I think they made a big stink about whatever. I haven't tasted it myself. I'll figure it out, but I'm still not sold on it being like, oh, this is going to be crazy. This is going to be awesome because it's every other sherry cask wine finish thing, whatever. Like we've all had it. And I don't know if that's going to appeal to our particular audience because It's not, our particular audience aren't hardcore like Angel's Envy drinkers either, right? Like that's not our particular audience. So we've got to figure out like what that looks like. Now, the other point about this, and I'm glad Tim is still here because there is still a little bit of marketing play going on. When you look at what it's actually being marketed as versus what the TTB regulation is, because the TTB regulation is actually a whiskey specialty. It's not a bourbon whiskey. And that's because it's finished in all these X barrels. However, you look at the Esquire article, you look at every other article, and it seems to always say bourbon, 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 bourbon. And the title from Esquire was Jim Beam is launching a bourbon unlike any other before. However, it's technically not like,
it's not a bourbon.
It's not a straight bourbon whiskey. So, I mean, Tim, coming from a marketing background like this, like, do you look at it as like, oh, it's an opportunity versus like, we'll kind of just make some gray lines here?
Well, I mean, you know, the biggest thing I'm thinking of is we're talking about it. You know, we're talking about it. People are talking about it. But it is an interesting story with them, you know, with the Japanese background and the Centauri side and everything. So, you know, Japanese whiskeys is a growing category. I'm sure we all enjoy a few of those brands. And so it is an interesting read, you know, especially like an Esquire. There's a reason it goes mainstream first, you know, try to get it out there across the board with some, you know, trying to introduce people to something new, maybe not the hardcore bourbon guys like all of us, but I say bourbon guys. Sorry, Jackie.
I was going to say the hardcore or the
hardcore bourbon drinkers.
No, you don't have to worry about that with me. I get it. Yeah, I'm grateful to be here.
No, it's not that. But, it's just, you know. So, I mean, it's a story. It's something that, you know, if we're talking about Jim Beam, that's a bonus for them. And we'll pick up new drinkers and to try stuff. I mean,
I tell you what, someone in the chat group, Dilly-esque or Dilly_esque said this is
Dilly,
about bringing Japanese lovers.
That's short for Dilly Esquire, by the way.
Dilly Esquire, sure. They made a good point.
Which was, yeah,
that was a good point.
The point they made is that it's about bringing Japanese whiskey lovers to bourbon, not the other way around.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
All 5 of them.
Yeah. And that's as we know, that's a good thing. That's a good thing.
No, the Japanese whiskey is phenomenal. I mean, that you know, I would drink that every day if I could buy it every day. It's incredible at the right age. And I think there's something to that. But at the end of the day, I think everybody here will know a little thing about keywords. And when you see the use of bourbon being repeated, you know, in these stories, you know, bourbon's a hot keyword, you know, so we can't really.
But Fred, like, I have to just tell you to, you know, I live here in LA, but we have whiskey bars here in LA too. And I actually kind of got into an interesting conversation with somebody who works at a bourbon bar, but was convinced that if a bourbon was finished in a sherry cask barrel or something else, and it was still a bourbon. And I was trying to explain what I had learned in class recently without being super annoying that, you know, here's the actual legal definition of bourbon. And it was just like, girl, you don't know what you're talking about. And unfortunately, he's in a position where he trains a lot of other people. And this is an actual specific whiskey bar, not just a restaurant. And it made me realize, I think a lot of it is lack of education. Of knowing, this weekend, I've gotten so many messages from girls that have told me they went out with their husbands. They wanted to order a bourbon for the first time at a restaurant. They asked the server for recommendations or ideas, and the server looked at them like they were on crack, and then they felt insecure to ask. And they said, just get me a vodka soda. And it just broke my heart because I'm like, this is why I need to be working with you guys to do what we're doing here and helping new people feel more comfortable going to a restaurant and ordering a bourbon or a whiskey. And if the server doesn't know how to help, then okay, then we'll educate you, we'll help, you know. But that was very telling to me that in a very big, prominent whiskey bar in LA, one of the head people didn't realize that and was not open to the feedback of that. And I love what Kenny just said about the Angel's Envy thing, because that was immediately what I was thinking is, you know, I was lucky enough to try the sherry cask finish, but then also the rye. And to me, the rye is much sweeter but maybe that's not traditional. Or, I've now feel like I've tried a number of different whiskeys in a sherry cask finish, and they don't all taste the same to me. It's not like I can say this is what I like or this is what I don't like across the board. Every one has been different with a different personality.
Are they promoting how long they're aging that in a cask and how long they're finishing it? Does that have anything to do with
At
it?
Angel's Envy?
No, the new Legent. Is it something astronomical, or is it a month? Is that?
That's not a question for me.
I haven't seen that anywhere.
I don't think they're disclosing.
Yeah, anybody.
I've got it in my notes somewhere, but
first off, we got to give Jackie a little praise because she's already gotten her first snob star on her jacket right there, right? She's going into the restaurants, telling them what they're doing
people
wrong.
stuff.
Yeah, man.
Damn right.
No, these are stories that other women are telling me. I haven't even done it. Look at the bar behind me. I don't have to go to a restaurant. I'm good at my house. But I'm saying I'm getting messages from women that are going out with their husbands, being all, gutsy enough to order a bourbon and asking for a little help. And so one thing they've asked me for help is literally sending them names of what they should order. And I don't think that's the right way to go about it. I think it's more about each individual and what they want. But yeah, I appreciate the snob star, but
oh, Fred's got a whole you couldn't even fit like a graduation gown with how many snob stars he's got on it.
Yeah, he's got a vest with with all the buttons on it.
Fred's probably one of the only people that I would say if you put a blindfold on him and had him try a bunch of different whiskeys, he would actually know the difference. Whereas I meet a lot of people that are just very passionate about one certain brand or another. And I guarantee if they had a blindfold on and tasted it, they would never even know the difference between another brand.
Absolutely. And so we got a late arrival to the game over here. He couldn't go one episode of the community roundtable with missing it. So Blake, welcome.
This is Cal Ripken walking out in the 10th inning.
Like a wedding.
Just get that sound in my hand. I need to talk for 30 seconds straight so I can act like I was on the podcast, and then I'm right back to Disney. So thanks for having me, everyone.
Welcome. Do you have any closing thoughts on Jim Beam's Legent before we go to the next one?
Yeah, I tried it. Not my favorite. It to me was very reminiscent. So I tried it next to Repeal Batch, and I thought the Repeal Batch was just as good, if not a little bit better. But I didn't know the price tag on it when I first tried it, and so I thought it was okay. Whenever I heard it was $35. I mean, the bottles looks incredibly cool. The product is good. It's just a lot of that. To me, it was a lot of that Beam heavy funk. I mean, I think. You try it in a blind tasting and everyone's going to automatically be like, oh yeah, that's Beam. But all in all, I thought it was a cool thing. I think they should be doing more of that under the Centauri brand. I think that just makes a lot of sense. So, I think it's a cool release, cool bottle, but as far as a taste wise, you're not going to be so upset with yourself at $35, but I'm not going to stock up on a 6-pack or anything either. So.
Okay. Well, see you later.
All right. Guys, I feel like I missed a lot of great topics. Everyone's really, I was getting texts walking through Disney World about Brett Favre doesn't give up. And
looks like he sprinted over there.
Yeah.
Sorry, Blake. They brought me in as a replacement, man.
Hey, I like it. I mean, it's like the Roundtable just got a whole lot cooler looking between. No, it's good. All right. Well, I'm gonna be in trouble if I don't go help put the Twins down. So thanks for having me on, everyone.
Enjoy the rest of this.
Nice to meet you.
See y'all. Nice meeting you as well. See ya.
Cheers, bro.
I feel like it's we're on a radio show sometimes, and it's we just get these calling or somebody's just calling in on it, but. That's always fun. All right, so we're going to pivot and do our last topic for tonight. Unless anybody else anything else to add on the Jim Beam sort of portion? Everybody's happy. I guess there's one question that I want to ask, and this I'm going to put this one to you, Fred, because this is I just thought about this. Is that everybody puts a very heavy emphasis on master distillers inside of American whiskey. However, on the Japanese side, it's very, very heavy into blending. Who cares who distilled it? It's about how it blends and how it tastes at the end of the day. So what's your kind of stance on something like that?
Well, yeah, blenders definitely have more of a cachet in some parts of the world. They have an emphasis on distillers in Japan, but the master blenders are more like gods. The guy who worked with Fred on this is, kind of a bit of a mastermind with that. He got an incredible palate, and the Japanese are, they are relentless with detail. So, this guy knows every single thing down to the ounce. And it was fun talking with them. His English was pretty good. It was, for me, when I sat down and interviewed him, it was kind of a awkward moment because we had just had our kid, and Fred's son, Freddie, just had their kid, and our kids were born on the same day, and all I wanted to do was talk about our kids. And so I wasn't really in a whiskey mood at that time, but I still feel like, there is a very strong rapport. If we can take away from anything from Legent, it's that there's a really strong rapport between the Suntory Japanese side and the whiskey makers in Kentucky. And I do think that can be very good for all of whiskey to see what they do next, because this is their first trial. And so, there's going to be more coming out after this.
Absolutely. All right. So let's move on to probably the I would say the biggest news, at least in the underground world. It's sort of kind of come up because it seems like a lot of people give a shit about Weller nowadays. And so the blue label Weller Foolproof made its debut on the TTB. However, there's only been a few places where it's just been rumors, hearsay. What does this mean? Is it a limited release? Is it available for barrel picks? Is it this and that? But it has sort of shaken the underground bourbon world. So before we kind of get too much into it, Jordan, I'll kind of look at you. Yeah. Do you see this line extension as a good thing? Is it Buffalo Trace also hitting that marketing train a little bit more as well? Because they, the Weller line is always allocated as it is, and now a lot of people will say, like, great, another bottle I can't get my hands on, if that's what it comes down to.
I think it's going to be really, we talked, like me and Nick and Eric talked about this a lot, right? I think it's going to be really interesting. So a few different facets, at least from our perspective. So you have OWA already, right? And they're not that much off in proof. And that's going up in price to begin with, right? So where does this put foolproof? And it's going to be a little bit of the hysteria that we saw when Stag Junior came out. Remember when that came out a few years ago? Everyone wanted it. You couldn't find it on the shelves anywhere, right? And it's kind of toned down. It's still hard to find, but you can get it. But I think having that Weller name associated with it is just going to just drive pandemonium that much more, right? You can't even find like regular old Weller, which used to be my daily just drinker to have in like a decanter around. I just liked a good, cheap wheated bourbon, right? And now it's just even impossible to find that. So it's going to be interesting. Everyone's going to want to try it when it comes out. I hope it's a line extension, just because I'm all about more options being out there. That said, what does it take away from, right? I think that's everyone's question. Like, if it's going to be a full-time line extension, or even just a limited edition run, what does it take away from, right? I don't think that all this extra wheated bourbon just sitting, or maybe they did, but I don't think that all this extra wheated bourbon just sitting around, right? So does that mean it goes away from some of the barrels age further for WLW? Does that mean OWA gets some taken away from it? What exactly does it mean? So I don't know. We'll see. But I'm truly excited. Like, I think we're all excited. I'm sure you guys all are too.
Let's think about this now. When they say full, what does the label say? It says foolproof?
Foolproof. So it's kind of a play on the 1792 foolproof, whereas it is going to be bottled at its barrel entry proof.
No, it won't. It'll be bottled at what it is, because the proof will change. So the barrel entry proof on Weller is 114.
Yeah, so it's going to be bottled at 114.
So you're probably going to be seeing ranges of like probably an in between like Maker's Mark cask strength and rare breed. So sometimes those proofs will go down, sometimes they will go up. So I'd say they're going to be between 112 and 116, and that's not too far off from OWA. And but I've always thought every sip of OWA I've had, I've always like, man, I'd like it to be just a few more proof points higher. So I think that this whiskey is probably going to be really great for my palate. Like I think I'll probably like it a lot. Just because I like Maker's Mark cash strength, and I've never done a Weller barrel pick I didn't like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Ryan, there's another question I kind of have for you when we start
can't
going.
wait.
I know I'm just full of them tonight. So I guess when you look down this path, is the 107 going to make things less available? Or sorry, is this going to make things less available? You know, we've always talked a lot about, do brands actually care about their consumers anymore? Is this them actually listening to fans and saying they want a higher proof version?
I think it's that probably the planning of 7 to 10 years ago of the bourbon boom is starting to come to fruition. Is like they're finally starting to get their stocks are aging, and they're starting to have more supply and able to bring more products to us. That's my thinking. I do probably think at full proof there's they're going to have I don't know what the MSRP is. It's probably going towards a higher retail price for us hiring consumers. So you might see like Weller Antique, the original, not Weller Antique, but the green label. Yes, green label maybe get hit, but I don't know. Buffalo Trace is hard to figure out, man. They like it's like you don't know if they're like there's a Blanton stores, then you go on a tour and there's like Blanton's cases everywhere, so, and you're like what the hell is going on here? So I don't know.
They seem to be bottling Blantons every day.
Yeah, it's like every time I go to barrel pick, it just happens to be Blanton's day, and it's like, well, but I don't know. It's hard. They're hard to figure out. I hope that this is. I'm pumped about it. Like Fred said, OWA is one of my favorite everyday drinkers. Like I do wish it was a little higher proof. I still love it as it is. I just think it's going to be a home run. I'm just kind of probably bummed that I'm not, because I'm not going to camp or follow the emails to go get some. So it's like I'm excited, but not because I'm not going to go bust down doors for it. That's just how it is.
All right, so Jackie, as somebody that we had talked about earlier, how we had talked earlier before we started recording, and Jackie and I are both not fans of the Weller Green label. It could be the proof, it could be the age, who knows? But Jackie, when you see news like this, is there something that kind of comes to your mind? Or are you kind of like, oh, cool, another color that we can buy another bottle of?
So it's not that I don't like Weller. I've only tried one, but it was presented to me as the starter bourbon. It was lined up as Larceny, Weller. This is where people start when they're getting to know bourbon. And then you move your way up to the rise and the stronger bourbons, as it was explained to me. And it was actually my least favorite. But I haven't tried the rest of their lineup. To me, when I hear things like this, just being new and being an outsider, my concern is more on, I hate what I just heard, that somebody who is a passionate bourbon lover may not be able to get this bottle because they don't want to wait in line or pay an enormous price or whatever scarcity factor, I guess, that's being marketed in. And I get it. It's business that everybody wants what they can't have. And I think that's global, whether it's whiskey or not, that it's strong. It's a effective marketing thing. But for me, coming in as an outsider to this incredibly warm, welcoming community, especially in Kentucky, in Louisville with bourbon, I hate the fact that I can have, that I'm getting things gifted that other people should probably get. And I'm kind of working on that right now on different projects.
No, don't feel bad about that at all.
But just conversations with some people that, like the first, trying Pappy or something that I know is so rare and so special. A lot of it seems to be random. For me, when I was on a random work trip in Texas, rolled into a place to have lunch by myself, and they just happened to have all the Pappies out there to try. And it was so random. But, I don't know what gets me about what this is that I feel like the people that are the tried and true and have been here that are also bringing me under their wing and welcoming me and allowing me to join the community should kind of be first on the list to try certain things or have access to certain things. And I don't know how that can happen while businesses can still make money. But that's kind of what I would love to try to help find a solution for, is for your everyday drinkers that just have been bourbon fans for life. The meat of your core audience, not neglecting those people, because yes, it's great to get women involved. Yes, it's great to get different demographics involved that maybe didn't drink whiskey before. I mean, obviously I'm walking proof of that. I love whiskey now, and I never even thought about it 6 months ago.
Yeah.
But
now you'll be the one hanging out and be like, oh wait, I heard about this new Weller.
Yeah.
Put me on the top of the list.
But the heart of it is you guys.
You got about 2 years before you're disgruntled.
Yeah.
There's
You're on the initial high
on the forehead.
Yeah.
You're on that fun side right now. You're where we all were once upon a time, and we missed those days.
Yeah.
Now we're just a bunch of disgruntled assholes.
Yeah, we got like 90 people in the chat, and they're all like, fuck this, I'm never going to find a bottle anyway.
Well, it's interesting to listen to you guys, because when you were just talking about Blanton's, I had heard a few times this last week of people telling me, oh, Blanton's, like they're running out. You have to go get Blanton's. And I have a friend at a liquor store that I was just having a chat with, and they also told me that Blanton was like their number one seller. And they're like, I don't know if it's that people even like the taste or have even tried it before, but it's just what people out here know, right? There's certain brands that people know. But there's so many other bourbons out there on these shelves that I was like, so nobody's buying this or this. I mean, Blanton's great. I love Blanton's, but what I would love to help is to further the education or help people taste other kinds of bourbons too, and know that it's not just, we maybe get 1% of what you guys know in Kentucky. And a lot of it is with the LA twist of, okay, you need Pappy. I've met so many people that say, I only drink Pappy. Like, okay, good for you. That's okay. But, there's also, I love bottles that are $30. And, when you guys are talking about all these $35, I'm kind of wondering, I think they're all marked up quite a bit out here, because they're few and far between. But so that's my take on it, is I think there needs to be a way to also still include the core community of who's created all this and has the legacy and the knowledge and are welcoming new people like me with open arms. I mean, there should be a way for you guys to come before me on that sense. Yeah.
Well, pro tip, next time you come to Kentucky, bring a suitcase. An extra suitcase.
I did. And I packed bubble wrap, by the way. So
there you go. Yeah. So you're already on it. Yeah. Before we kind of tail off on this topic, one last comment from everybody on this, because somebody said, well, while we're talking about new labels, talk about the new E.H. Taylor Amaranth. I don't even know what the Amaranth grain is. Does anybody?
So I got to try this back. This is now a year and a half ago when we were doing a tasting at Buffalo Trace with the Friends of the Trace program. It's a different type of grain. It's going to be really interesting, right? Wasn't my least favorite, wasn't my favorite, right? But I think it's going to be really interesting. And for those who like different grains, I think they're really going to like it. For those who are more traditional bourbon drinkers, we'll see. But I was psyched to see it actually made the light of day.
So I should know what amaranth is because I have a turf management and horticulture degree, and I had no idea. But I looked it up and I was like, "Oh, I kill that shit!" Like, I kill that from the field. Like, why are people putting it in whiskey? But anyways, that's what I thought of. Initial thought.
All right, that's a good way to close it up. So on the 30th edition of the Bourbon Community Roundtable, we made a landmark. Blake even made an appearance. Didn't really expect that to happen, but let's go ahead and let's kind of go around the table and we'll start closing this out. Tim, you stuck around, man. I appreciate you doing that. So. I'll tell you what, tell people either
doing market research.
Yes, that's what he's doing.
Listening.
But just tell people like where they can listen to the show, where they can find more about you, or where they can contact you afterwards.
Yeah, so easiest way to follow me is Tim Jones Creative on Instagram. I post behind the scenes, some releases, day job stuff, a lot of bourbon things. And then our new show on Discovery Channel, it starts March 13th, this Wednesday, 10 o'clock Eastern, called Moonshiners Whiskey Business. Also own Gents Original. It's a cocktail mix and soda company. So gentsoriginal.com. You can find some mixers there. But Tim Jones Creative on Instagram is the easiest way to keep up.
Awesome, Tim. And thank you again once for joining us as well.
Absolutely.
That was fantastic.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. And we'll have the other new face go next. So, Jackie, kind of give people an idea of where people can find out more about you and they can follow you and your whiskey journey as well.
So just at Jackie James on Instagram. I'm still kind of creating and developing what I'm doing based on audience feedback and as a new person, where I can add value to this community. But yeah, so that would be the easiest way. And just thank you guys for having me and teaching me.
Absolutely. And Jordan.
Cool. So I'm Jordan, one of 3 guys from the Breaking Bourbon website. You can find us at Breaking Bourbon on all the social media handles and Patreon. And make sure you go to the site for our daily release calendar updates.
Awesome. So, Fred, Ryan, it was another good conversation tonight. We touched on, actually, we didn't touch on as many topics as I want to. I had another topic we were going to, but we kind of ran short on time here. But
at least it wasn't politically charged tonight, like last time.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, we'll take a deep breath, little kumbayas, and we'll be okay. We'll get through it. But of course, thank you for everybody that did tune in. I think we had close to 80 to 90 people that were watching live
Kenny
tonight.
thinks it's a bust.
It did. I don't think it hit triple digit.
Not 100.
We'll I guess we'll try again next week or next time, I guess you can say. But Ryan, Fred, go ahead and kind of close this out for us.
Go ahead, Fred. You got me Metallica tickets, so you go first.
It was an awesome show, by the way.
Yes, thank you very much. That was amazing.
You bet. Yeah, just check me out at Fred Minnick. I started a YouTube series called The Curation Desk. Go check that out. And
we love the videos too.
Yeah, they are good.
You do awesome with them.
Thank you.
Still waiting.
You guys are going to be guests.
Yeah, good job on those, man.
Yeah, they're awesome. Man. All right. Well, that was good.
I like how you break the awkward silence.
Sorry, I'm off my game. I've been sick for the last few days, so.
Yeah, Metallica, man. Self-induced sickness. I hear you. No, thanks everyone for joining us. Tim and Jackie, it was a pleasure having you on and getting your perspectives. Looking forward to the show. And Jackie, look forward to future conversations in this community with you. Jordan, so good to see you again as well. Always a pleasure. Can't wait to see you at Thunder. But and to all our guests in the chat, even though there was only 80, I love you, and I still think it's a success. And thank you for tuning in. We love our audience. We love doing this. This is like Kenny and I's passion thing, the Bourbon Community Roundtable, and all of us, I'm sure. So thank you for joining in. Thanks for everyone for their time, and leave us some feedback, some show suggestions, reviews, comments, all that stuff. Social media, you know where we're at. So we'll see you next time.